Good day, everyone. How are all of you? I hope you all are doing very awesome, and I hope you guys are reading fiercely. Kim here with Native Lady Book Warrior, and today I will be reviewing another Indigenous book by Katherena Vermette called The Break. So, let's get started. Hello everyone! Welcome back, or very new hellos and very new welcomes to those of you who are very new to my channel. Again, my name is Kim, and I am very happy today to be reviewing another Indigenous book by an Indigenous author. Katherena Vermette is Métis from Treaty 1 territory, which is described as being in the very heart of Métis lands in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. So Vermette's book, The Break, is a national bestseller in Canada and also a winner of multiple awards, including being shortlisted for the Governor's General's Literary Award and the Rogers Writers Trust Fiction Prize. So wow, right? And as you can see, that those are just a few awards that Vermette's book has received. A little bit of background. My husband actually got me this book, and I book hauled this in last month in August, along with some other very wonderful Indigenous and fantasy reads that I have yet to tackle. But anyway, he found this book by watching Danny's video, and her booktube channel is called Thunderbird Woman Reads, which has very awesome content. She's an Indigenous booktuber and also Indigenous bookstagrammer, and I will link both of those below, but her channel is pretty amazing. I encourage you all to subscribe. She has such a wide range of Indigenous reads, and she's just really awesome. So thank you, Kana'a Danny. If you never recommended this book, I believe it probably wouldn't have fallen into my hands so surprisingly and also before its time. So thank you. Content warning. I love that in the beginning of this book there is a trigger warning for sexual and physical violence and depictions of vicarious trauma, but this book also says it is about recovering and healing from trauma. And once I read that, and I just really wanted to hurry up and get started in this book, and it was exciting for me to read that in the very first page, like right on the title. Okay, The Break takes place in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. And the break in the story's beginning is a nickname which is described as a strip of bare land interrupting like a row of homes, and this area is also quoted in the book. So let me read it, and don't worry, it's non-spoilery because it's actually on like the first 2 pages. The area around the break is slightly less poor than the rest, more working class, just enough to make the hard-working people who live there think that they are out of the core and free of that drama. There are more cars in the driveways than the other side of McPhillips. It's a good neighborhood, but you can still see it if you know what to look for. If you can see the houses with never opened bedsheet covered windows, if you can see the cars that come late at night, park right in the middle of the break, far away from any house, and stay only 10 minutes or so before driving away again. My Stella can see it. I taught her how to look and be aware all the time. I don't know if that was right or wrong, but she's still alive, so there has to be some good in it. So that is a really, really awesome description of the break. I mean, other than its physical description, but what the break is, what surrounds the break in that community, and I thought that was really beautiful. This area, the break, is also where a violent crime takes place and ultimately becomes the incident in the story that connects all the characters in the book, and how that crime particularly affects a circle of family and friends of multiple generations. I think specifically 3. The story doesn't happen in sequential order, but I also feel it is reminiscent of the title of the book, that the story of all of these characters, and the story itself is these very beautiful broken pieces, and pieces that are slowly making their way back together. And as a reader, I found this story to be painful and heartbreaking, but also beautiful and very hopeful. The book follows multiple characters, and it changes perspectives throughout the book. A majority of those perspectives are Indigenous women, and with the acceptance of one male Métis law enforcement officer. And the writing in this book is smooth, and it's emotionally engaging, and I was very, very much absorbed in it all. This book is split into 4 parts, and those transitions themselves into each part of the book. And I'm not going to spoil it, but they were very gorgeous, and they were poetic, and also, well, for me, those parts are also a very surprising perspective. And also, each character has their own voice, and it was those voices, each of them were strong enough for me to be let freely into the characters' minds, and to explore their thinking, and to explore their feelings, and while experiencing that crime and how it has affected them. And how Katherina wrote these characters, I was speechless at times, because the writing, although it's very beautiful, it's also raw and real and honest, and the care that was taken in writing their experiences was at times also very intimate, and it felt warm and inviting, and also very much alive. And these characters are also while dealing with this violent crime, they're also dealing with their own personal multiple traumas, and because they're a family, those traumas tend to cross over into each other's lives, and before the incident and also during. Vermette also layers the story with their previous experiences, and it really adds to the telling of what is going on in the story, and also very much to the development of each character. Katherina, she is a very poignant and strong storyteller. She gives us a perspective where we're almost seeing all sides of what is going on, and while also explaining the pain and the trauma, and how violence affects not only people in this story, but how it could also, especially in Indigenous communities, it could affect more than just a family, how it kind of violence affects us all, and it bleeds over into everything, and not just within Indigenous communities, but outside it. And how that violence can pass down, or not pass down like genetically or anything, but how it could trickle down in through the generations, even as memories, even as vicarious trauma. What I really appreciated was the strength of family and friendships, and how they can be healing and restorative through that whole process. In my opinion, the villain in this book is not a specific character, but for me, I found the antagonist to instead be the failure of, and the oppression of systems, and their hand in creating historical and intergenerational trauma. I mean, even though residential schools aren't mentioned in this book, you can if you're a person who knows anything of Indigenous history, you can subtly see it there. Well, I did. I don't know if anybody else did while reading this book. And obviously the racism against Indigenous peoples is something that is also very apparent in this book. Microaggressions and just racial thinking, and so that's in this book as well. Also, Indigenous women in the United States, and I can't speak for First Nations peoples, but specifically Indigenous women in the United States are more likely to experience sexual assault than any other demographic in the country. And the stories of re-victimization during the criminal justice process are endless. And I'm not talking about a victim being victimized again by a perpetrator, but the victim being re-victimized by the system itself. Whether if that looks like victim blaming or just non-believing, or a victim who is not being a good victim and participating fully in the criminal justice process, especially with law enforcement. And it's because, I mean, this is why trauma-informed investigation and trauma-informed interviewing is very crucial for responding to crimes, especially sexual assault, and creating policy and practice that is victim-centered. And, well, geez, now I'm starting to sound like I'm at work. And I very much appreciated this story and the honor and care and the powerful and strong love it took in its storytelling. And this book was also very personal to myself. And I connected with these characters. I saw myself in characters at certain time, and so thank you, Katherine, for this very, very wonderful read. I mean, it has helped me on my own personal path to healing as well, because like I told some of my very, very amazing fellow Indigenous book reviewing group, that I am very much a firm believer in using story to heal, and using story to see and identify how we hurt and the roots of that pain and that hurt, and how we can use story to try to dismantle and just identify and see and be aware of the many levels of oppressions that we experience, including our very own internal oppression. So, my rating for this book. You guys want to guess? Well, yep, it's definitely 5 out of 5. This book is so filled with hope and empathy and courage and strength. And finally, this book doesn't try to make it feel like a war between the characters, like making and pointing out villains and pointing out saviors and pointing out relentless heroes, but instead Vermette just gives us humanity. She gives us humanity and all its truth and all its strength, and it was just so amazing for me to read this book. And I myself recommend this book highly. So okay, so that concludes my book review for Katherena Vermette's The Break. I highly encourage this book, but again, there is sexual and physical violence and trauma in this book, so I also recommend you guys take care in reading this book. So again, I wish you all a very wonderful week and a very wonderful day, and I shall see you again soon. So if you have read this book, please feel free to check out my book discussion. So see you later. Bye.